And all the people said, I'll try to come up here today. A couple of weeks ago, Sam's in-laws, Sam is my third child, they came into town, and they're from Weihai, China, and they'd never been out this way, and we wanted to show them why we love this place, the Pacific Northwest, our new home. So we took a trip out to the Olympic Peninsula, and the first day we went out to Ruby Beach. You ever been there? Ruby Beach? Beautiful. And we stood there with the waves rolling in, those massive rocks rising up out of the water. And then we made our way to the whole rainforest. Now, if you've ever been there, this is a place that doesn't feel like you're visiting there. It feels like a place that's been there for a million years. And you're the one who doesn't quite belong there. Everything is so green. Everything is quiet. Everything, and somewhere in there, that's where it happened. That's where it happened. My new in-laws learned the word Sasquatch. Now, Iris parents didn't just learn this new name. I mean, I could hear them practicing at night. What's that word? Sasquatch. Sasquatch. It's not easy to say. And they loved it. They loved this. And they, by the way, could you see, I don't know, is there another one there? Oh, yes. See how she got my feet there? Anyway, they wanted to say it all the time. And of course, knowing that they would laugh every time I said it. I told jokes all the time about the Sasquatch. But from that moment on, we were apparently on this mission. Every trail, every overlook, every patch of trees, we were looking for Sasquatch. We got up to the Hurricane Ridge, and we built a Sasquatch snowman up there. And at one point, we took a family photo, and I swear there was a Sasquatch in there. And somewhere in the middle of all that, of the laughing and the searching and the not quite knowing what we were looking for, we made our way out of the whole rainforest and to the Dungeness Spit. Now, if you've never been there, this is really hard to explain what this looks like. It's this long, narrow stretch of land, 5 miles out to the Salish Sea. And it just keeps going and going out into that sea. And when you first step out there, there's a crowd, you know? People laughing, taking pictures, kids running around and ahead, groups stopping and saying, wow, this is amazing. But the further you travel out that spit, the quieter it gets. The crowd starts to thin. People start turning back. And before you realize it, it's just you and the in-laws in my case. And the further you go out, the more everything changes. You look back and the shore starts to disappear a bit, quietly, like something letting go of you. And you look ahead and it's so unknown out there. I'm a flatlander from the middle of the country. I don't know what it's like to be by the ocean. It kind of scares me. And at some point, you realize you're not really here anymore. And you're really not there either. You're in between. Have you ever been there? And suddenly the wind picks up and the ground shifts just enough that you have to pay attention to your every step. And then always in the back of your mind, at least my mind, there's the tide. That's the thing I just don't understand, the tides. Because if you stay out there too long, if you misjudge it, you're not just going to walk back on sand anymore. You're walking back through water. And I'm not like Jesus. I can't walk on water. And so, even while you're out there, part of you is watching the horizon, paying attention, wondering, did we go too far? And there, in between of it all, I had this strange thought. Of course, I'm a pastor, so I think about it often. But I thought to myself, this is a place that feels like the gospel. It feels like a part of our story, a part of Jesus' story. Because there is a place like that, isn't there, in Jesus' story? A place where Jesus stands at the very edge of everything, with the crowd gone, and what's left is just silence. A place where what once felt certain begins to give way, and where the path forward's no longer clear, and the way back doesn't seem even possible. And in that place, do you remember that place? What does Jesus say? My God, why have you forsaken me? He feels abandoned. That, my friends, is the Dungeness spit of life. That's the place where certainty gives way to a feeling we know, and maybe you know, as abandonment. Pastor Brooke, come on, wait a minute. This isn't Good Friday, this is Easter. Come on, give us the Easter stuff. Yeah, well, I know. But if we're really going to understand Easter, we have to locate where it begins. And it doesn't begin in a beautiful garden full of flowers. It begins out there on the Dungeness spit of life. There's another story near the Dungeness spit that you might know that lives on the spit. It's the story that kind of put the small town of Sequim, Washington, and the University of Washington rowing team on the map. Do you know that story? It's the story of Joe Rant. And it's told in that incredible book. Every person from Washington should read it. The Boys in the Boat. You got to read the book. Movie stinks. Books where it's at. Books where it's at. And the underdog of that story, the story of the 1936 U.S. Olympics rowing team, who got the Olympic gold, right, in Berlin. The hero of that story is Joe. Just like almost all the other boys in that boat, though, he grew up hard times, the dirty 30s. Joe's dad was a logger, and early in his life, his mom dies. So for a while, they got by, right? And then Dad remarried. Joe was just about 10, 11. And Joe and his new stepmom, well, you know how it goes. It didn't go very well. Joe tried to make it work. And then a couple of babies arrived. And he felt pushed to the side. And then listen to this. When he was just 14, Joe came home from school one day, and his family was all packed up in a pickup, ready to move. Everyone's things were packed in there, but Joe's. Joe ran back to the house, get his stuff. He said, well, maybe they just forgot me. So he's going back to get his stuff, and the dad grabs his hand, and he says, Joe, no, you can't go. We're leaving you here. We don't have enough money to feed you. There's too much friction between you and my wife. We just can't. And the dad turns and he heads back to the pickup. And Joe's family heads down the spit, leaving Joe. Joe waves. They don't even wave back. And there was Joe, abandoned on the spit. And maybe that's why that place touches our hearts so much. Because it's not just out there, is it? It's not just in other people's lives. It's in our lives sometimes. It's in people's lives that we know. Because we all have moments like that, right? Moments where something ends. Moments where we find ourselves thinking, I didn't plan to be out here. Sometimes it's a diagnosis. Sometimes it's a relationship that doesn't hold the way we thought it would. Sometimes it's a death. And sometimes it's quieter than that, a slow realization that something has slipped away. And suddenly there you are, standing between what was and what's next, out on that Dungeness spit. We sometimes talk in the Christian faith of carrying our cross like it's something somehow manageable. It's something we can organize. We put it on our coffee mugs. Everyone has a cross to bear. But sometimes, I'd say most of the time, it's just not like that. Sometimes the cross is heavy. Sometimes it's not something we choose. It's something that just finds us. And sometimes it doesn't feel meaningful. It would be a lot easier to handle if it felt meaningful. Sometimes it doesn't feel redemptive. It just feels like loss, confusion, like being out somewhere you never planned to be. And maybe the hardest part is this. Sometimes it doesn't feel like God is there. Sometimes God is like that spit, the end of the spit there, 5 miles, and we can't even see it. So all we hear is silence. And as all we hear is that same question, my God, why have you forsaken me? But here's what Joe discovered. And I want to share this. And it didn't happen when he won the gold medal, by the way. That's kind of where we like to put Easter, right? The gold medal story is the big victory at the end. But that wasn't Joe's resurrection. Read the story. Read the book. The movie misses it completely. Sorry. But his resurrection happened in the boat on Lake Washington, out there on the water with the other rowers on his team. In that moment when everything came together, not by force, but actually by Joe surrendering. Rowers have a word for this. They call it the swing. It's that moment when 8 people stop trying to overpower the water and each other and instead begin to move as one. No one's trying to be the strongest. No one's trying to prove anything. They're just together. And when that happens, something shifts. Effort becomes rhythm. Strain becomes flow. And Joe said it like this. It felt like something or someone larger was carrying us. And this, my friends, is where I think Easter lives, breathes, becomes real. Not escaping the spit, not pretending the cross wasn't real, but in discovering you're not alone out there, that something is already moving. Christ is in the boat. Christ is in the rhythm. Christ is in the quiet movement of life that begins to return. Even when nothing has been fixed, Easter begins. And that's where Mary comes in. Her life isn't fixed. We see her today where? She's in the garden, but she's not seeing any flowers. She's grieving. She's confused. She's not out there looking for resurrection. Are you kidding me? She's just trying to make sense of what's been lost, trying to hold on to something. And then Jesus is there, and she doesn't recognize him, not at first. People wonder, what's going on here? But sometimes when you've been out on the spit that long, hope is really hard to see. It's hard to see Easter. And then Jesus speaks. Not a sermon, and I was going to say, take note, Pastor Brooke, not a sermon. Just one word. Do you know what the word is? Mary. Her name. In that moment, everything shifts. Not because her circumstances have suddenly been explained, not because all her questions have been answered, but because she is known. She is seen. She is remembered. I was talking with someone from our church a couple of weeks ago, and it's fair to say that she is out there on that spit. Her husband had just died, and we were talking, not trying to fix anything at that point, just trying to be there. And somewhere in the conversation, I turned to her and I asked, I know you're going through a really hard time. What can we as your church, what can Bear Creek do for you right now? And she paused. Her eyes filled up with tears. And then she looked at me so gently and said something I haven't been able to shake. She said, I just want to be remembered. I just want my loved one to be remembered. That's all. Don't forget us. Isn't that it? Underneath everything, it's not just pain that we're afraid of. It's being forgotten, left behind like Joe, like we didn't matter. And maybe that's why that moment in the garden matters so much to us, because Jesus doesn't start with answers. He starts with a name, Mary. And in that moment, she knows she is not forgotten. And maybe I think that's what Easter is. Not the moment everything gets fixed, not the gold medal, but the moment something begins to move again. A breath breathed into us, a rhythm, a quiet returning, the swing. And maybe for some of us, you're not under that weight. Maybe you don't have that problem. Maybe you're not on the spit. Not all of us are. Maybe you're not carrying that heavy cross now. Maybe we're not out there on that far edge. But maybe we can help someone else begin to find their swing. Sometimes that's not as complicated as we think it is. I have a friend who's been going to ICE detention centers just to visit people. He doesn't know any of them. And he told me about one man he met, a man who had just been taken from his family. He'd been in the detention center for 2 or 3 months. And when he first saw this friend of mine, he just broke down crying. That man, that dad, felt like the world had abandoned him. But in that visit, he felt something shift, not because his situation changed, but because someone remembered him. And maybe that's how Easter moves, not just in what God does for us, but in how we show up for each other, remembering each other, helping each other find the swing again. And maybe, just maybe, Christ, or we might call it the flow, is already there in your boat. Not asking you to row harder, not asking you to prove anything, just inviting you to find the rhythm of an Easter life, of an Easter swing. You're not alone. And all the people said. I think we have the choir coming forward. Yeah, we have the choir coming too.